All right, today we are going deep undercover into a hidden world of biological espionage. We're going to investigate a secret agent that is so effective it can literally control the mind of its host. So, our story doesn't start in some high tech lab, it starts out in a quiet pasture. For centuries, shepherds have seen this really disturbing phenomenon in their flocks, a mystery that turns a peaceful field into, well, a scene of confusion and dread. I want you to imagine you're a farmer. You look out and you see one of your sheep just walking in endless circles, its head held strangely high, stumbling around like it's drunk. It seems confused, totally detached, completely out of control. This isn't just a sick animal, this is something else entirely. So this bizarre behavior actually has a name, GID or staggers. The symptoms are clearly neurological. The animal loses all coordination, its movements become totally erratic, and eventually it can even lead to paralysis. It is a deeply, deeply unsettling thing to see. So what on earth could be the cause? I mean, you might suspect a weird plant, maybe a new virus, or even contaminated water. But for generations, the real culprit was this sinister secret, a tiny invader waging a silent war right inside the animal's own brain. Well, it is time to unmask the culprit. The cause isn't a microbe or a poison. No, it's something far more deliberate. It's the larval stage of a tapeworm, what we call a metacestode, and it acts like a highly specialized secret agent. Okay, so first let's meet the mastermind, the adult tapeworm, or cestode. This is that long, segmented worm you're probably picturing, living its adult life in the intestine of a predator, its final host. And its only job here? Produce millions and millions of eggs. But the real secret agent is this, the metacestode, also known as the bladderworm. This is the larval stage. When a tapeworm egg gets eaten by an intermediate host, say a sheep, it doesn't grow into a worm. Nope. Instead, it forms a cyst, this bladderworm, and it just waits, silently, inside the animal's tissues. And this right here reveals the parasite's stunningly brutal strategy. The bladderworm has one single mission: manipulate its host. It needs to make that sheep slow, clumsy, easy prey, so that it can be eaten by a predator like a dog or a wolf. Only then, inside that final host, can it finally grow into an adult tapeworm and complete its life cycle. So it all comes down to this two-host system. You've got the bladderworm developing in the prey animal, that's the intermediate host, and then you've got the adult tapeworm reproducing in the predator, the final host. The parasite absolutely needs both of them to survive. But, not all bladderworms are the same. This secret agent comes in several different forms, and each one has its own unique and kinda insidious strategy for survival. Let's take a look at the three main types. First up, we've got the most straightforward model, the Cysticercus. Think of this one as the basic operative, kind of like the single field agent. The Cysticercus is essentially a fluid-filled sac with one single inverted tapeworm head inside it, which is called a scolex. It usually just camps out in muscle tissue. And if you've ever heard of measly meat in pork or beef, well, that's cysticercosis, an infection caused by these tiny bladders. Next is the Conurus. Now, this is a more advanced agent, maybe a team leader. And this is the direct culprit behind the GID or staggers that we saw in our poor sheep. So unlike the Cysticercus, a Conurus cyst doesn't have just one tapeworm head inside. It has multiple. And its preferred location is way more dangerous, the brain or the spinal cord. As this bladder grows, it puts pressure on the brain tissue, causing the exact neurological damage that leads to that circling, staggering behavior. It is literally turning the animal into an easy target. And finally, we have the most complex and formidable agent of them all, the hydatid cyst. This isn't just a single agent or a team. This is an entire sleeper cell factory. The power of this thing is, well, it's terrifying. Just look at this image of a goat's liver. Each one of those sacs is a hydatid cyst. It's not just waiting, it is actively and asexually reproducing inside the host, creating thousands upon thousands of new tapeworm heads. A single hydatid cyst can grow to an enormous size. I'm talking the size of a grapefruit, taking over organs and destroying tissue. It's an incredibly efficient cloning machine for the parasite, but for the host, it causes a severe disease called hydatidosis that can easily be fatal. So, what does all of this have to do with us?
Unfortunately, this isn't just a problem for livestock. Sometimes we humans get caught in the crossfire.
You see, if a person accidentally ingests tapeworm eggs, say from contaminated soil or water, our bodies can become the intermediate host. Now, for the parasite, this is a mistake. We're a dead end, right? We aren't likely to be eaten by a dog. But for us, the consequences can be devastating. In humans, this can lead to two main diseases. First, you've got cysticercosis from Taenia larvae. This forms those single cysts in our muscles or, most dangerously, our brain where they can cause seizures. Second is hepatidosis from Echinococcus larvae. This creates those massive, growing cysts in the liver and lungs that lead to organ failure. And if one of those hedatid cysts ruptures, it can cause deadly anaphylactic shock. Now, I know this all sounds terrifying, but here is the good news. The parasite's greatest strength, its really complex two-host life cycle, is also its greatest weakness, and we can exploit it.
The key is to just break this chain of transmission. First, deworming dogs prevents them from shedding tapeworm eggs in the first place. Second, proper hygiene, like never ever feeding raw organs to dogs, stops the cycle. And finally, for our own safety, just thoroughly cooking meat kills any bladderworms that might be hiding inside.
And that really is the key takeaway here. It's not about fighting the worm itself, but about understanding its journey. Once you know the playbook of your enemy, you can predict its moves, and you can intercept it at every single turn. Knowledge is absolutely our best weapon.
From that staggering sheep to the microscopic cloning factory in a liver, the bladderworm is just a master of survival. It's a reminder that we share this world with some incredibly sophisticated organisms. And as our environments change, you just have to wonder, how will these ancient agents of espionage adapt and evolve next?